The woman inserted the key into the keyhole and gently twisted it. Suddenly, the lock transformed in a strange, magical way. This mystical old house had finally welcomed its new owners. The mother turned around with a mysterious smile and said, "Welcome to this house." The first time the whole family entered their home, they were immediately overwhelmed by an ancient apple tree. However, this apple tree was highly poisonous. Helen warned everyone not to eat it under any circumstances. She didn't know why her grandfather had planted such a toxic tree inside the house. The family curiously explored the house and discovered a miniature kitchen. Inside, it was not only fully equipped but even had a gas stove. Everyone was surprised, but it was clear that no one had lived there for a long time, as mushrooms had even started growing on the roof. However, the secrets of this magical old house certainly didn't stop there. Helen had just gone through a divorce, so she brought the whole family back to live in the house left by her grandfather. Conveniently, she could also take care of an aunt with mental illness and find psychological counseling for Jared. Jared was pleased with this and chose a room for himself, but there were strange scratch marks on the wall with no clear origin. The two brothers didn't think much of it. That night, strange events started happening one after another. Jared was awakened from his sleep by knocking sounds. He tried to wake his brother, but he was already in a deep sleep. The knocking continued endlessly. Jared mustered his courage and grabbed a sword to check outside. He followed the sound to the room in the corner of the house, quickly opened the door, and stabbed forcefully. Clearly, there was no one in the room, but the tip of his sword had a bit of fresh blood on it. As Jared was still confused, a pile of items in the room suddenly fell. A painting was revealed. It was a painting of a man-eating demon. The signature on the painting turned out to be that of his great-grandfather. At that moment, Jared didn't yet realize that the man-eating demon not only truly existed, but also had a deep connection with this family. At the same time, Jared's psychologist had arrived at the hanging bridge outside at night. A vague silhouette appeared on the other side of the bridge. The doctor begged the figure to return his daughter. He had fulfilled his promise to bring Helen's entire family to this town. The ghost seemed to accept his words and immediately released his daughter. After being apart for so long, father and daughter embraced emotionally. But when Muga looked closely, he noticed that his daughter was slightly shorter, and the birthmark that had been on her left cheek had now moved to the right. He immediately realized this was not his daughter. He became frightened and asked who the person in front of him really was, but the only response was a smirk full of contempt. The next second, a giant hand reached up from under the bridge and quickly grabbed Muga, pulling him down to feast on him. After the man was dealt with, the ghost on the other side of the bridge slowly approached and revealed its true form, a demon. Its appearance constantly changed. In a flash, it had taken on the form of the doctor. These two strange creatures then lived in Muga's house under the guise of father and daughter. They hid under human disguises and quietly infiltrated the town. Coincidentally, a customer came by. The daughter intended to immediately turn this person into her dinner, but the man-eating demon restrained his instincts and stopped her. Because his target was the entire population of this town, there was a miraculous fruit here. If he could find it, he would gain godlike powers. Before that happened, he couldn't let anyone become suspicious. If hungry, they could only temporarily eat cats. The next morning, Jared told his family about what he had discovered the night before, but no one believed him. Mallory immediately checked her belongings and saw no trace of blood like he had claimed. No matter how Jared tried to explain, they just thought it was another of his jokes. After a few days of adjusting, the whole family started settling into the new environment. But that day, while Helen was cleaning, she discovered a small apple on the ancient tree in the garden. A childhood memory suddenly returned to her. Back then, her aunt had once used the apple to make medicine. The aunt said that when drinking the potion, one must turn their pinky finger outward to become invisible and avoid being hunted by the man-eating demon. Luckily, at that critical moment, Helen's mother knocked over the teacup and she didn't drink the poisoned tea. Remembering this, Helen became frightened and immediately picked the apple and threw it in the trash. The next day, Helen visited Lucinda, who was mentally ill, at the hospital. Lucinda had previously been fine, but upon seeing Helen, she suddenly grabbed her hand tightly and insisted that Helen's entire family leave the town immediately. Only then could they avoid the evil clutches of the man-eating demon. Helen didn't understand what was happening, but Jared, who was eavesdropping outside the door, remembered it in his heart. After that, Lucinda was restrained by the medical staff. In another development, the father and daughter demons were observing an egg in the town's museum. According to the staff, it was a dragon egg. Though it was unclear if it was real or fake, it had always been displayed as an artifact. Upon hearing that, the daughter immediately devoured the dragon egg. After chewing and swallowing, she discovered there was still an embryo inside. The baby dragon was still alive. Meanwhile, Jared's family was preparing for dinner when the knocking sounds from the previous night returned. Helen was determined to uncover the truth. She picked up a stick and smashed the wall. As a result, dried up dead rats were revealed. Jared tried to say something, but the whole family still believed it was one of his pranks since he had done similar things before. Feeling discouraged, Jared left the house and went to a music festival in town. There, he was attracted by a firefly, but when he caught the firefly to look closely, he discovered it had a human face. Terrified, Jared immediately threw away the jar containing the firefly. Then, he panicked and ran home, sneaking into the broken wall. He climbed the stairs and reached an attic. There, he found many scientific tools and insect specimens. Painting in the corner was a portrait of his great-grandfather. Next to the painting was a book about mystical creatures, but for some reason, all the pages had been torn out, and this book was exactly what the man-eating demon was looking for when he brought them here. The book recorded the traits of various mystical creatures. While Jared was still confused, a mirror next to him suddenly made a sound. It was as if something invisible was writing on it. When Jared clearly read the message, he immediately turned around and saw a strange rat. Both of them were startled and frightened. Jared fled, while the intelligent rat quickly hid and vanished. However, when Jared went downstairs to inform his mother, she simply thought his condition was worsening. Meanwhile, the man-eating demon was cutting his hand and dripping blood onto the dragon embryo. The embryo absorbed the blood and began to react, but this scene was accidentally witnessed by a neighbor. The daughter was slightly annoyed, and the two immediately closed curtains. But before long, someone knocked on the door. They thought the neighbor had called the police, so one of them opened the door while the other climbed up to the ceiling, preparing to attack. But when the door opened, it turned out to be Helen and Jared. Worried about Jared's worsening condition, Helen had taken him to see the psychologist in the middle of the night. No one expected that person they were meeting was already the man-eating demon in human form. Ever since Helen's family returned to town and opened their ancestral home, strange events had increased. Mystical creatures that had once hidden themselves also began to appear, but they were completely unaware of the existence of these creatures. The only person who knew the truth had been considered mentally ill and locked up for 40 years. When Lucinda saw the man-eating demon about to harm her family again, she decided not to sit idly by. She took out the green apple she had previously hidden. She dripped the poison from the apple into her tea, chanted a spell, and drank it all. As the incantation was spoken, Lucinda fainted and immediately turned invisible, using that chance to escape from the mental hospital. At the same time, Jared was being questioned by the psychologist. Jared recounted everything he had seen and showed the painting of the man-eating demon. Looking at his own portrait, the demon could only endure it. What he truly wanted was the book recording all the mystical creatures. However, the therapy session was interrupted when Helen burst in. Panicked, the hospital had informed them that Lucinda was missing. Everyone immediately returned home, grabbed flashlights, and went into the forest with the neighbors to search for Lucinda, leaving only the children at home. But right after the adults left, noises began to echo as if someone was walking in the attic. The group went upstairs and saw the film reel spinning and projecting continuously. In the video, he was teaching young Lucinda how to identify different types of fairies. He said there are good fairies, bad fairies, some are afraid of humans, and some humans must be afraid of. Hearing this, Jared immediately felt hopeful because he wanted to prove that he wasn't lying. But Jared's siblings just thought the fairies were merely tiny bugs. To prove he wasn't crazy, Jared decided to find the invisible mouse. He spread flour all over the floor and installed surveillance cameras. Meanwhile, the group in the forest searched for Lucinda all day, but couldn't find her, so they decided to go deeper. Unexpectedly, right after they left, Lucinda suddenly appeared from the shadows. She quietly made her way to a store. According to Lucinda's memory, this place had all the magical ingredients she needed, but after 40 years, it had become a supermarket. Lucinda asked the staff working there and was surprised to learn that he wasn't just an ordinary employee. He recognized her. He opened a door behind the supermarket, and on the other side was another world. Lucinda immediately stepped in joyfully. Meanwhile, everyone was still searching, unaware of where Lucinda had gone. Helen happened to reach under a large bridge and discovered a bloody shoe. Clearly, this was the real psychiatrist's shoe left behind by the man-eating demon. Helen immediately wanted to call the police, but just as she was making the call, a monstrous hand reached out from behind. Helen sensed that something was wrong, so she quickly turned around, but the man-eating demon had already transformed back into the psychiatrist. At that moment, the children at home seemed to have discovered something. The alarm system Jared had set up suddenly went off. When Jared ran into the room to check, he found that the field guide about the man-eating demon had caught fire. After the search, Jared's sister leaned against the railing to rest, but in just a blink, her hair got pulled and tightly stuck to the railing. At that point, everyone believed that a mystical creature was in the house. But when Jared checked the surveillance footage, he discovered that the person who started the fire was actually him. Now, there was no other way. No matter how much Jared explained, everyone believed it was just a prank he had pulled. Jared had no choice but to return to his room in frustration. frustration. His brother tried to comfort him, but Jared was still determined to prove the truth. In the end, he found a secret chamber hidden behind the bookshelf. After clearing it out, a hidden passage quickly appeared. The two of them entered immediately and discovered Lucinda arguing with the mouse. Now the truth was clear, but when Lucinda saw them, she pulled out a knife defensively. She even took the chance to restrain Jared. The reason was that fairies are all afraid of iron, and some fairies can shapeshift into anyone. Luckily, Jared wasn't affected, so Lucinda quickly let her guard down. She said that the man-eating demon had always been after the field guide. To stop him, she had torn out all 86 pages of the book and hidden them all over town, marking them with special protective symbols. To avoid being found by the demon, Lucinda had even erased all her memories after the age of 25. She instructed the two to find every single page of the book. Only with complete field guide would they be able to destroy the man-eating demon. If the book fell into his hands, every mystical creature would be controlled by him, and humans would become the top of the food chain. Lucinda knew that the man-eating demon wouldn't spare her, so she gave many instructions before handing Jared a very important item. She told him to keep it safe. After that, Helen also happened to return. The demon, still in the psychiatrist's form, wanted to take her away, but on the way back, Lucinda recognized him. Even though he had shapeshifted, she could still smell the disgusting stench of the man-eating demon. The daughter sitting in the back also admitted that she had pretended to be Jared and burned the demon's page. They took Lucinda into the woods. The demon tried to force her to reveal the location of the book, but Lucinda had erased her own memories, so she didn't know where the pages were hidden. Furious, the demon killed her, but no blood came from the wound. Lucinda even smiled smugly. Her body turned into countless flower petals and vanished before him. However, the next day, Lucinda's body reappeared, intact, at her own funeral. Her family, though saddened, quickly organized the ceremony. They even played the song that Lucinda had chosen before her death. But once the music began, everyone realized that after becoming mentally unstable, her mind had indeed grown bizarre to have chosen such a song. Thus, the solemn funeral turned into a party. Even the fairies in the house joined the dancing. Since Lucinda had passed away, Helen's mother also made a special trip here. Mavina said that she was the rightful heir to the house, but she didn't want to stay even a minute. She even advised her daughter to take the children and leave as soon as possible. Right then, the man-eating demon disguised as the psychiatrist also walked in. Seeing that Helen's family truly intended to leave town, he could no longer sit still. He devised a plan to keep the family from leaving, with the goal of using them to find the field guide that Lucinda had hidden. Since the book hadn't been found yet, he couldn't let the family go. Fortunately, Helen had only thought about it and hadn't actually left. The man-eating demon comforted Helen. That night, he dug up Lucinda's grave. At that moment, Lucinda wasn't dead. It turned out that the body at the funeral was created by the shapeshifter girl to avoid alarming others. Jared also believed in the existence of fairies, so his mother sent him to the demon's clinic for psychological counseling. Jared suspected that Lucinda's death was related to the man-eating demon, so he put iron shavings into cookies to identify the one hiding under human skin. But everyone ate them. Only the demon didn't react at all. Not only that, Jared even told the demon about pages of the book, exactly what he wanted. The demon immediately guided Jared to search for the hidden pages in town. Encouraged by the psychiatrist, Jared eventually discovered a door with magical symbols in the heart, but the door had been protected by Lucinda, so no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't open it. Luckily, after discussing with everyone, they successfully deciphered the symbols and opened the magical door. Inside, they found a page of the field guide. According to the book's description, they quickly went to a lake in town. If the book was true, this had to be the home of the legendary unicorns. But in reality, the lake was completely empty. When everyone thought they had been tricked, Jared remembered the important item that Lucinda had carefully entrusted to him. He immediately picked it up and looked through it, and the scene quickly changed. At first, the lakeside was empty, but through the ring, two unicorns suddenly appeared. Meanwhile, at home, Helen was also organizing Lucinda's belongings. The old TV nearby was still playing a video. It was recording Lucinda's therapy sessions. Helen found it a bit strange, so she went up to turn off the TV. But right after that, the TV turned itself back on. Lucinda seemed to be talking to Helen from inside the screen. After hearing it, Helen was extremely frightened and immediately turned off TV. However, Lucinda's shadow suddenly appeared, but when Helen turned around, the spot was empty again. Helen felt uneasy, so she quickly left the room. Right then, a human shadow suddenly appeared on the wall. The man-eating demon had always been disguising himself to monitor their family. The longer they stayed here, the more danger they faced. Even Jared's sister, who was passionate about fencing, encountered something strange. To learn from the flower-wielding master Flortino, Mallory specifically joined her fencing school to train. One day after finishing practice, she sneaked into her idol's office and unexpectedly found a photo of her idol with another woman. Based on the note on the back of the photo, the young woman was Lucinda. The photo was taken in 1979. If the two were from the same era, Valentina should be over 50 years old. But why did she still look so young? Could she be a fairy too? The entire family was experiencing strange events, so they hurried back home. Helen also wanted to take this opportunity to ask her mother the truth. She wanted to know why her mother had been so cruel to lock Aunt Lucinda in a mental hospital for 40 years. But Mavina became extremely agitated and refused to answer. She even tore up the page that Jared and his brother had found. Clearly, she knew something too, but she absolutely refused to say it. To stop the man-eating demon from destroying the whole town, the two brothers Jared decided to seek help from the spirit their grandfather left behind in the house. However, the spirit was not in a good mental state, so it attacked Gian and injured him. Therefore, he had to go to the hospital for treatment. The man-eating demon, disguised as the psychologist, also came to take care of him. When he saw the torn pages, his eyes lit up and he almost couldn't hide his excitement. In a moment of carelessness, he accidentally ate a cookie containing iron that Ferd gave him. The demon immediately lost control and began to reveal his true form. Ferd, lying in bed, was also extremely shocked. To stop the man-eating demon from devouring the town's residents, Jared and his group quickly returned home and planned to capture the little spirit left by their grandfather, Tibutak. To gain its help, Ferd's older brother woke up early and went to the forest to pick the mushroom most loved by the rat spirit. But even though it was only early autumn, the leaves in the forest had already all fallen. It was clear that after the evil dragon was resurrected, it had begun to corrode the nature here. The two brothers carried the fresh mushrooms back to the attic, but when the curtain was pulled down, Tibutak inside had mysteriously disappeared. This creature was angry and didn't want to help because it felt injustice for Lucinda, who had been locked in a mental hospital. Tibutak was once a friend of Lucinda. Therefore, it hated all members of the Spiderwick family and always opposed them. While everyone was confused as to why it was making things difficult for someone already dead, Tibutak revealed that Lucinda was still alive. She was just trapped somewhere and couldn't escape. Tibutak wanted to rescue her, but he couldn't easily leave the protection of the house. While hesitating, Ferd's older brother wanted to save Lucinda, but Jared stopped him. Because Tibutak had injured him before, Jared always maintained an unfriendly attitude toward the rat and did not believe its words. Ferd believed it was just a lie. Ferd quickly covered the cage again, but Ferd's older brother was calmer. After Jared left, he secretly reopened the curtain and persuaded Tibutak to help with the reason of saving Lucinda. It turned out that to fight the man-eating demon, Lucinda had made a deal with the Golden Market. To find her, they had to go to the secret realm of the spirits, and the only way to enter was to plant a mushroom circle that her father had recorded. Only by planting the mushroom circle could they enter the spirit's secret realm. Jared wondered why his brother believed a little spirit thought to be mentally deficient, but his brother said Tibutak had shown him page 4 of the book on spirit species. On one page was written the method to plant the mushroom circle. Whether it was true or not, they would know if they tried. After discussing, everyone quickly split up to take action. The scene shifted. Jared had arrived at the mental hospital run by the man-eating demon. He took the risk to come here because one of the spirit pages was hidden there. Jared took out spray paint and sprayed it on the wall, then drew a doorknob on it. His companion was still surprised when something miraculous happened. The drawn doorknob began to turn according to Jared's finger movement. The door in the drawing immediately opened. A spirit page flew out from inside. The two quickly fled after retrieving what they needed. Elsewhere, Simon followed the original map to an abandoned factory, but felt that someone was following him. As he warned, a blonde-haired girl stepped out from the shadows, but Simon did not dare approach. Although he used to be close friends with the girl, after learning she was the daughter of the demon, he began to feel uneasy. The blonde girl, falsely accused, immediately protested that she really wasn't the daughter of the man-eating demon. Seeing Simon distancing himself, the blonde girl sadly stepped back. She accidentally touched an iron object behind her, and her hand was instantly burned. This scene happened to be seen by Simon's companion. The situation had gone too far, so the two had no choice but to part ways. Meanwhile, after finding a spirit page, Jared continued toward the large bridge outside the town. But both were a bit afraid because according to the book, a giant demon was sleeping beneath the bridge. It was the one who had devoured the real psychologist from the very beginning. Fortunately, Simon had found the method to plant the mushroom circle at the abandoned factory. Upon hearing this, the two immediately left the dangerous area. At the same time, the man-eating demon, who had not eaten human flesh for a long time, was at home preparing to bake. He decided today he would replenish his nutrition, so he called the neighbor over. Then he gave her a magically enchanted pie. After taking one bite, the neighbor couldn't stop, lost all consciousness, and began eating madly until she died from overeating, and she became the man-eating demon's dinner. Not only that, but he also intended to devour everyone in the town, because he had hatched an evil dragon. When the evil dragon grew, its poison would seep into the town's water system. Once people had consumed enough of the toxin, it would be time for the man-eating demon to satisfy his hunger. Some people had found the magical instruction book and quickly returned home. Because Tibi-Tac had once hurt Jared, as soon as he saw it, Jared immediately used a bag to trap the rat. However, this was clearly not the time for conflict. After some persuasion from Simon, Jared had to let go. Everyone prepared the ingredients according to the instruction book. Under Tibi-Tac's guidance, they dropped a human tear into the mixture. Something miraculous happened. Large mushrooms quickly sprouted. Then, a magical room formed. Lucinda's figure gradually appeared in the mist, but the next moment, the smoke cleared, and only a small spirit firefly remained. When everyone thought that was her, the little spirit panicked and flew wildly around the house. It even cut off the power in the old house. Tibi-Tac also took this opportunity to hide in a dark spot. As the spirit firefly flew chaotically and made the place a mess, the team wanted to open the window to let it fly out, but Jared firmly refused because Tibi-Tac might escape. While everyone was still arguing, Jared grabbed a pan and killed the frightened little spirit. However, this action enraged Simon. Jared's reckless behavior disappointed Simon deeply, but not only did Jared refuse to admit fault, he also struck his brother. Because of this, the relationship between the two brothers cracked. The others also fainted during the chaos. They thought it was just an accident, but when the power was restored, the old house was full of people lying motionless. Clearly, the evil dragon's anesthetic poison had begun to take effect. Now, their only option was to call an ambulance to evacuate the unconscious people. After the oldest sister finished taking care of everything and returned home, she accidentally found her friend hugging the same firefly. The girl whispered a few words, and the firefly that Jared had killed suddenly glowed again. It seemed this girl was not an ordinary human either. Although Jared had discovered the truth and tried to explain, his mother didn't believe him at all. Meanwhile, the man-eating demon, disguised as the psychologist, peered openly at Jared's house. At the same time, Simon, who had cut ties with Jared, took the blonde girl and intended to seek reinforcements to resolve the issue. But unexpectedly, when the blonde girl was about to get into the car, she suddenly transformed into the bus driver. The blonde girl was a hungry demon. Whoever she transformed into would certainly die. Meanwhile, seeing the man-eating demon approaching his family, Jared immediately texted Simon, the only person he trusted, but his message couldn't be sent. It turned out, because Jared had hit Simon, his mother had followed the demon's advice and cancelled his SIM service. The man-eating demon also took advantage of their argument to take the spirit instruction book they had collected earlier. Once the book was in his hands, Jared couldn't get it back. But to eat everyone in the town, the demon still needed to find the final page of the book, the one that recorded information about the evil dragon. Due to Simon's sudden disappearance, the whole family was extremely worried. After seeing with her own eyes the girl save a spirit last night, Mallory finally believed in the existence of such creatures. Mallory blamed these strange beings for her brother's disappearance. She firmly believed that Valentina and her master were hiding some unspeakable secrets. But when confronted by Mallory, Valentina simply brewed a bowl of magic tea and gave two options. 1. Defeat her to learn the entire truth, or 2. Drink the tea and forget everything about the spirits. The situation had come to this. Mallory clearly had no way to back down. Meanwhile, Jared didn't know how to deal with the man-eating goblin, so he had no choice but to lower himself and beg Tibi-Tac. But the grudge between them was too deep. Tibi-Tac, hiding in the shadows, completely ignored Fair. Downstairs, Jared's mother had packed up and was preparing to go out with the man-eating goblin to look for Simon. In a panic, Jared took out the seeing stone to show his mother, but the stone, which had the power to see through all magical disguises, suddenly stopped working at the crucial moment. Clearly, the man-eating goblin had prepared for this. Powerless, Jared could only watch the two of them leave. At that moment, Tibi-Tac finally revealed himself, but only to mock Fade for having killed other magical beings. However, after mocking Fade for a while, he did reveal a bit of useful information. The painting that the evil dragon used to decide the fate of the town was hidden in this mysterious old house. But no matter how Jared turned the magical key, he still couldn't open the space containing the dragon painting. Meanwhile, Simon was on his way to the city to seek help. The blonde girl decided to take him to see the local kitchen god. To ensure Simon's experience, as he was a normal person without magic, the blonde girl specially used her saliva to enchant his glasses. When he put on the glasses, he immediately saw the hidden magical beings. But before he could be surprised, he was pulled inside. After the blonde girl placed the offering on the altar, the kitchen god immediately appeared. She got straight to the point. She said that a man-eating demon had told her it wanted to swallow an entire town. That being was extremely cruel. She had no choice but to obey him. She was afraid she would harm many people. She asked if he could help her escape from that monster. However, contrary to her wishes, the kitchen god showed indifference, and his expression was also extremely extremely strange. Seeing that the situation was not right, Simone tried to take back the offering, but it was too late. The kitchen god not only wanted the offering, but also wanted to eat the two of them. In a moment of crisis, the blonde girl was attacked and held in place. As a normal person, Simone was not noticed, so he had a chance to escape, but the kitchen gods outside clearly wouldn't easily let go of such prey. Elsewhere, Mallory was fiercely attacking Valentina to get to the truth, but Mallory was no match for the swordmaster, so she was quickly defeated. Seeing that Mallory was too intense, Valentina made a cup of magical water to calm her down, but the steam from the cup gathered on the mirror and reflected Simone's situation. Seeing her younger brother in danger and unable to help, she told Simone to suddenly attack and find a way to escape. Simone followed immediately, and indeed, when the kitchen god wasn't paying attention, he used a frying pan to knock him down and freed the blonde girl. Then, the two ran away. But just as they escaped, the blonde girl accidentally transformed into Jared's appearance and signaled that Jared was about to be in danger. Seeing that, Simone could only wish he had wings to fly home immediately. Mallory, having witnessed her brother in danger and being unable to do anything, felt deep regret. She blamed herself for being too obsessed with swordsmanship and neglecting her family. This sincere regret truly moved Valentina. Seeing that the time was right, the sword master decided to reveal the whole truth. The first thing she revealed was her own secret. This famous swordmaster actually had no arm, and her arm was just a mass of concentrated magical energy. In just one night, all the townspeople were infected with a strange disease. Mushrooms grew all over their faces, turning them into walking corpses. The cause of this was the man-eating goblin. Those infected by the parasitic mushrooms completely lost consciousness. They were controlled by him and eventually became his food. Meanwhile, the man-eating goblin, disguised as a human, kept approaching Jared's mother and easily obtained the field guidebook they had collected. To turn the situation around, Jared followed Tibutak's instructions and finally used the magical key to open the room containing the evil dragon painting. As long as the demon didn't get this painting and couldn't successfully hatch the dragon egg, he wouldn't be able to devour the entire town. However, it was all a trap. In the end, Jared couldn't escape and had to hand over the painting. Now the goblin completely controlled the method to raise the evil dragon. The tiny dragon egg, after being properly incubated, quickly grew huge. Along with that, the evil dragon's virus also became stronger, causing more and more townspeople to fall into a coma. The remaining people were also controlled through parasitic infection, turning them into zombies. Helen, who at first had always believed the psychiatrist wasn't a monster, finally discovered the truth when she found a neighbor's finger in his house. But by then, it was too late. The entire town had already been controlled by the demon. She was also about to become the next victim. Luckily, Jared and a few others were still alive. Valentina had previously told Mallory that if they wanted to completely destroy the man-eating demon, they needed to find the divine sword. Valentina had once joined Lucinda in an attempt to assassinate the goblin, but failed and paid the price with her arm. The reason they failed was because Valentina was also a fairy, and fairies couldn't touch the divine sword, so only a human could destroy this demon. To find the sword, they crossed space and reached the Hell Market, but the shop owner demanded 500 front teeth as payment. This made them feel hopeless, because even if they gathered everyone's teeth, they only had a few. Luckily, the shop owner was a hardcore gambling addict. He promised that if they could beat him in one game, he would give them the sword. But if they lost, they would all have to work for him forever. It sounded simple, so the group immediately agreed to try. But the shop owner had sharp hands. He could hear all their plans. Luckily, Mallory stepped in. With her ability to control emotions, she changed her movements and won. Seeing this, the shop owner tried to go back on his word, but the group quickly grabbed the sword and ran away. Even though they had the sword, only someone with a pure heart could summon the divine sword. Unfortunately, Mallory wasn't the chosen one. But the friends succeeded. With the sword in hand, they immediately began their monster hunt. Simone pretended to surrender and tied up Fair to bring to the man-eating demon. The demon sensed something suspicious, but had nothing to fear. To completely break Jared and Helen's resistance, he even prepared a dinner. He even added a lychee spore into the food. After dinner, they would be infected by the mushrooms and lose their ability to resist. Meanwhile, Simone persuaded the spore spirit to take the dragon eggshell and head into the forest to seek help from other fairies. As long as the powdered dragon shell was spread over the town, the sleeping people would wake up. Elsewhere, Tibutak secretly added apples to Helen and Jader's tea. Everything went smoothly. The two of them used the tea to follow Lucinda's instructions. They successfully brewed the invisibility potion and disappeared right in front of the man-eating demon. Seeing his prey vanish, he was furious. He searched for them throughout the house. At that moment, Mallory, who had been hiding earlier, seized the chance and rushed out to draw the demon's attention. The demon had lost his patience. He pulled out the two horns on his head and turned them into weapons. He intended to kill her immediately. Her teammates also took this opportunity to grab the divine sword and attack him from behind. But at the critical moment, the blade disappeared. Fear had tainted her heart, so the sword vanished. Seeing that, the man-eating goblin raised his hand to kill her. At that urgent moment, a beam of light flashed. Mallory successfully summoned the divine sword. In the end, she managed to do it because there was nothing purer than saving someone. Even so, she still wasn't a match for the man-eating goblin. Even though she sacrificed herself to land a hit, a human like Mallory was still the first to fall. Fortunately, Helen, who had left earlier, suddenly showed up just in time. Helen used hot iron to launch a surprise attack on the goblin. Since they couldn't defeat this demon, their only option was to summon an even more powerful magical creature to help. Following Tibutak's instructions to summon this giant creature, they had to create the sound of wind. Everyone immediately began to mimic the sound of blowing wind. Before he could destroy the whole group, a giant hand pierced through the wall, grabbed him, and dragged him away. Luckily, the man-eating goblin was captured by an even larger creature. At the same time, countless fairies flew up and scattered powdered dragon shell that Simon had brought throughout the town. The citizens in deep sleep gradually woke up. Although the crisis had been resolved, the evil dragon had completed its incubation and hatched. Their reason told them they should destroy this threat. But since the dragon hadn't done anything evil yet, Jared couldn't bring himself to do it. While the whole family was celebrating, another Jared ran in from outside. The newcomer could accurately reveal Jared's secrets, making everyone unable to tell who was real and who was fake. Both claimed to be the real Jared, but in the end, the new Jared proved his identity with an iron rod, because iron burns fairies, but he was completely unaffected. The atmosphere instantly grew tense. The other Jared tried to explain, but in a moment of panic, Mallory stabbed him with her sword. As expected, it was the fate. He immediately turned into dust. The whole family hugged each other in joy, but they didn't notice that in the palm of the new Jared was a burn mark, and the real Jared wasn't actually dead. He had appeared in the secret land of the fairies, where Arthur Spiderwick had been waiting for him all along. The movie ends here. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, and see you again.